Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast, Women's Gymnastics Edition. We are back. First gymnastics episode since the LSU Tigers won their first national championship. So we have the gymnastics expert with us, Miss Sarah Bogan. How are you doing today, ma'am?
Oh, I'm going to be honest with you, Martin. I have not yet recovered from this weekend. It was a really, really wild weekend, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about it today.
Just for the record, where were you this weekend?
So for the record, I was actually in Minneapolis for the what year is this? Yeah, 2024
24.
U.S. Olympic Trials for Gymnastics. So I was, as they say, in the room where it happened. I got to watch one night of the men and both nights of the women's competition. And so I got to be there in an arena packed with 16,000 people when both teams were made. Both teams were named. And I want to give a little bit of a shout out to my best friend since high school. Abby lives in Minneapolis. As soon as she saw that these tickets went on sale over a year ago, she bought them for us. So she's a teacher. So we had the nosebleed seats because that's what she could afford on her
I was
teacher
just about to
salary.
ask, like, what were the average ticket prices for
So
this type of
I
thing?
so I think our tickets were all session tickets. I'm pretty sure up in the tippy top corner
Mhm.
of the arena, we paid $300 a piece.
That's for the nosebleeds, 300 a piece.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
believe down in the lower bowl it was probably close to 1,000 plus. I know Abby said that she also looked at kind of the non-corner seats, kind of lower and more on the side of the upper bowl, and they were about 500 each. So people paid a premium to see these gymnasts in action. But when you have two Olympic all-around champions in the mix, we potentially could have had three Olympic all-around champions in the mix. People are willing to pay. So yeah, it was quite a weekend, I must say.
So you just said that it could have been potentially three because the last time that we spoke after LSU won and we talked about the Olympics and whatnot, we were talking about the potential of three,
Yes.
because of Gabby, and she is not spoiler on the team. What happened for people who don't follow? What happened with her?
Yeah, so Gabby, I think a couple of years ago, she kind of started training. She was actually a contestant on The Masked Dancer back
Mhm.
during COVID. Won that competition, really enjoyed the performance aspect. At a certain point, she started working. She and her family own a ranch in Texas. And so she
Mhm.
started working on the ranch. And then she was really happy, but kind of realized she was missing kind of competitive things. So she kind of quietly started doing gymnastics again, fell back in love with the sport, and announced her comeback for the Olympic season. So, first time we saw her was a few months ago at the American Classic. She did all right. It was her first time competing since 2016. She was on that 2016 Olympic team.
Mhm.
Um, and she definitely had some rust, but she was making her way back. She then competed at the U.S. Classic, which was the last big meet before U.S. Championships. She went up on bars, her strongest event. It's the event she probably would have been most in the mix for to be on the Olympic team.
Mhm.
Didn't have a great routine and then immediately withdrew afterward. And then ended up pulling out of U.S. Nationals with an ankle injury. So, kind of a comeback that a lot of people were hoping to see more from. But having her in the mix and seeing her do what she loves again after so many years was very, very cool for us as fans to see.
Okay. So we
So
already
kudos to
said
her.
with two, so spoilers, Simone Biles and Suni Lee both made the team. Now, Sarah, who else made the Olympic team?
Yeah, so this year's Olympic team, there are a couple of non-surprises and quite a few very big surprises. So, of course, no surprise, Miss Simone Biles, greatest of all time. Absolutely incredible to see her in person again. Second, we had Suni Lee, former Auburn gymnast, and of course that 2020 gold medalist in the all-around. Then we have Jordan Chiles from UCLA, also on that 2021 team. Jade Carey of Oregon State, who represented the U.S. as an individual in 2021, and newcomer, 16-year-old Hezly Rivera. So 4 out of the 5 on the main team are repeats from last year. And then there were also alternates named who will be traveling, including Leanne Wong from Florida, who was also an alternate in 2021, and Josclyn Roberson, who's an incoming freshman in Arkansas and has had a really great senior international elite debut so far, but unfortunately had some injuries really get in the way of her success this year. So it was very exciting to see her make it all the way back and be an alternate.
So I watched the last day of it when they picked all the 5 when they were coming out, who got picked and whatnot. Do you feel like this is the right team? Like, do you feel like you're comfortable with this team going, or are there some people that you would have put over others besides the 2 all-around gymnasts and Jordan and Jade? I guess that last spot's the one that's really in question, that 5th one with the 16-year-old Rivera.
Yes. So this is the team I was expecting. So it wasn't the team I was expecting going into the weekend, which we are going to talk about why. But with the way the competition unfolded and how things shook out while we were waiting for the announcement to be made, I was thinking to myself that it was going to be these 6 gymnasts, or 5, excuse me, because I did think Hezly had the edge going in. The reason being is that you have Jade Carey, Simone Biles, Jordan Chiles, who are all very strong on floor and vault. And as far as bars and beam, we have a really good bars worker in Suni, really good beam worker in Suni. Jordan and Simone could both fill in on beam, but really what those really strong top 4 are missing is someone else to pick up, especially bars. And Hezly did exactly what she needed to do, in my opinion, to prove herself. She, I think, was 4th on bars overall this weekend, especially her night 2 bars set. I was all the way across the arena, but I could see from where I was sitting, her lines were beautiful. Her dismount was stuck. She did what she needed to do. And then she went over to beam. All of the top contenders fell. So Simone fell off beam. Jordan fell off beam. Suni fell off beam. Hezly actually tied for 1st on beam on night 2, which was really impressive. And I think those 2 things together are what made it really clear that Hezly was the right choice. So she is young. She's very young. She's 16. This is her first year as a senior international elite. But she does have a bit of junior international competition. So she was a really top junior for a really long time. When I went to U.S. Classics in 2022, I actually got to see her compete in the junior division. She did very well. I was actually sitting next to her dad at one point in the competition. I got to hear a little bit about her and her training. And so I kind of knew that Hezly was going to be an up-and-comer for a long time. Others might remember Kyla Ross from 2012. So Kyla had just turned 16, just became a first-year senior, had been national champion in the junior division the previous year, came out as a first-year senior, made the team, contributed very well to the team. So it's definitely something that has been done before. And I believe that Hezly has it in her. So others, Leanne Wong was someone that I was really pulling for. Leanne has been, a University of Florida gymnast. She's been a mainstay on the U.S. teams for a very long time now, has been successfully balancing college and elite gymnastics. Was part of the team that won all-around gold at Worlds last year, or not all-around gold, team gold, excuse me. But she finished, I believe, 8th at Olympic trials. I think if she would have been up there maybe at 6th, maybe they would have put her in ahead of Hezly. But that really didn't look like, unfortunately, it wasn't a possibility. I know a lot of people were pulling for her. And then Joss Roberson was also in the conversation, but again, her big strength is floor and vault. And again, with Simone and Jade, they really needed somebody else to put up strong routines on bars and beam, that being a bigger need. So I do believe the team was correct given the circumstances.
Okay. Okay.
Did you have opinions that you wanted to share?
I just wanted to make sure I was right with Rivera. Rivera is the young lady who was a part of Simone's, like she was at Simone's gym or whatnot, that she used to train at the gym, and then now she's on the same team, or is that a different young lady?
Oh, that's a different young lady. So
Okay.
Josclyn
Josclyn.
Roberson trains at Simone's gym. That's actually a really big training group. So um, Simone, Jordan Chiles train together. Joss Roberson is part of that. Another gymnast that was in the mix and was another favorite of mine, I thought could have taken this spot if she'd performed really well, is this lovely gymnast by the name of Tiana Simonasecra, who's going to be starting at UCLA next season, has one of the best beam routines in the world. She also competes and trains with Simone.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
I
Hezly, oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
no, you're fine. You're fine. I was just gonna say in terms of because I was gonna ask about team building and whatnot, but in terms of team building, I guess I mean you got four out of the five who have Olympic experience. They've been there
Mhm.
before. They know what it takes. So you have experience there, and then you have this young woman who, depending on how she does in these next couple of weeks when it gets to Paris, she might be the face of the team in the next 4 years. So
Mm.
I think also you have something too where, from a team standpoint, you got this 16-year-old there about to be fresh face doing what she does. And if she does really well, people are going to be like, all right, this Rivera lady is going to be the face of the U.S. team in the next 4 years because she's 16, so that put her at 20. And I
Mhm.
mean, the next four ones, Suni, Simone, Jordan, and Jade aren't going to be doing it. So you need to start finding a new face. And Rivera has that
Yeah.
chance with a very strong first impression in Paris that it could be it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think USA, Team USA was very fortunate in 2008. The youngest member of the team, Bridget Sloan, stayed on the next few years, became world all-around champion the following year, was kind of in a leadership role on the team for a couple years before going off to University of Florida to do her college career. And then Kyler Ross, who I mentioned, was the youngest member of the 2012 team, was pretty much a leader on that set of team, like that team, competed. She was second to Simone Biles in some of Simone's first competitions. I think she competed at Worlds with Simone twice. Once she got silver, once she got bronze. And then she went off to college right before the next Olympic cycle started. But
Oh, and just
USA,
real,
historically,
real
yes,
quick too for that thing with Rivera because I mean they are going to need a face since the next Summer Olympics will be in the United States.
yes. And I know something Joss Roberson has said as well is, between Hezly and Joss and the other kind of young gymnasts, first of all, everyone wants to stick around for 2020,
Hmm.
28 because it's a home Olympics. It's a big deal. But the younger gymnasts who are coming up now are watching Simone and Suni and Jordan and these gymnasts who are being really successful well into their 20s. And I think they believe that they can do it too in a way that previous generations of our gymnasts haven't. So between those two things, I think we're going to have a lot of people fighting for those LA 2028 spots. And I
Oh
think it's
yeah,
going to be really fun to watch.
no. So when they were competing, I guess how were the score? Like, did the scores matter? Like, what was scoring going into the factor of making the team? I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people a casual fan watching is like, it doesn't really matter what Simone gets. She can get a zero across the whole board. She's going to be on the team.
I
Like
mean,
what?
that's probably true.
So how much does scoring matter in getting on the team, and like how was scoring in a team, like how is scoring different from like a college or an elite? Like how is it different in this?
Okay, so elite scoring is a little bit different than NCAA scoring. So with NCAA, each routine is out of 10 points. So
Hmm.
we've got that perfect 10. The elite code of points breaks things up into a D score, which is the difficulty score, and an E score, which is an execution score. The execution score is what you expect it to be. It's out of 10. Most gymnasts will score in like the eights. They'll maybe get into the nines if they're really, really clean, but that's rare. And then the D score, difficulty score, is based off of how difficult your routine is. How many big skills do you have? Do you connect them to each other? So, like on bars, do you swing from one release right into another, or do you kind of take a kip or some swings after or in between? Same with beam. Like, do you do one flip after another right into a leap, or do you kind of pause and catch your breath and catch your balance in between? All those things add together and give you a difficulty score. So you can actually be really, really high, get a really, really high score by bringing in really high difficulty scores. And that's why Simone is so good, is because she has really difficult routines, but she does them really, really cleanly. On the first night of the competition, we saw Suni Lee, who currently has one of the most difficult beam routines in the world, had a massive balance check on day one and really struggled in a couple parts of her beam routine and still came out number one by a lot on beam. So that kind of gives you an idea of how, if you're used to watching college gymnastics, in order to win, you're going to have to be really, really, really clean. Elite gymnastics, being clean to a certain extent is important, but that can be balanced out by going really big. So, in terms of building an Olympic team, so uh, Team USA has always said that they select their Olympic teams based on being able to earn a team medal in the team competition. So the way teams qualify into the team competition is in qualifications. There are 5 gymnasts on a team. It's a 5-4-3 format. So 5 on a team, 4 go up on each event, and then the top 3 count. So just like in NCAA, that fourth score will drop. Then in the team final, it's 3 up, 3 count. So hitting and being really clean and not messing up is really important in the team final. So when the powers that be were selecting this team, they were thinking a lot about specifically who's going to execute really well, who can be counted up or counted on in that 3 up, 3 count format. And so that's why the balance of the team is really important. So you need representation of, high scores on all of the different apparatuses in order to get a high team score.
Gotcha. And you said during the event, so like when it was all happening, this was the team you envisioned, but you didn't say before the event started, this was the team that you envisioned. So
No.
before the event started, what team did you envision and why did that team not come to be?
Well, this is very sad. So I will say that before everything unfolded, I didn't know who the team was going to be. I believed that Simone was going to be on the team, of
Hmm.
course. I also really, really believed that Chiles Jones was even more of a lock than Suni was. I thought Chiles, I think, has the ability to be as good as Simone if she's having an amazing day and Simone's just having an average day.
Hmm.
So Chiles has been an all-around medalist at Worlds the past 2 years. She's really probably second or third best all-around gymnast in the world. Chiles unfortunately got injured during warm-ups right before the meet. And so this is something that I wasn't aware of. So I saw her go up and do bars in the competition, and then I
Hmm.
saw that she scratched the rest of the meet. I did not know that she had a pretty serious knee injury immediately before she went. So after day one of the competition, the morning of day two, it was announced that she was evaluated and wasn't able to continue. We don't know yet what that injury is, but there's speculation if it's a knee injury and it's season ending, it's probably something like an ACL or MCL or meniscus and something that she's definitely going to want to repair and recover from. So losing Chiles was very sad. A couple days before the competition at podium training, there's a gymnast by the name of Sky Blakely who is committed to start at Florida in the fall. Sky was looking so strong this year. She was on the world's team past couple years, won world gold with the team a couple times. Is really good on beam, really strong on beam. Um, isn't the most consistent in international competition, but was looking really strong this year. Came to nationals with a really high scoring, very difficult vault upgrade and was looking so good. A lot of people thought that she was starting to look like a lock for the team, but she tore her Achilles in training before the meet. So that was really sad. And actually, midway through the first night of competition, she actually came out onto the floor and stood in the middle of the floor to be recognized before anyone could announce her to the stadium. People recognized her and gave her a standing ovation because everybody in the arena understood, this is, you know, a gymnast who came so close, had a good chance of being on this team. And, we just want to acknowledge her for everything she's been through and congratulate her for making this far. And it was just one of the many moments in that arena over the weekend that gave me literal chills. So we lost Shy to a knee, we lost Sky to an Achilles, and then night one of the competition, the first person to go up was Kayla DiCello, another Florida gymnast. She was also kind of looking like a really strong contender for that fifth spot. She did a vault, very first routine of Olympic trials for women. She vaulted and went down, and that was another Achilles. So we had two Achilles and some sort of knee injury among three of our top contenders. And once those three were gone, it opened up possibilities for, many more of these veterans to get these spots. And after those three were out, it was pretty clear who was going to step up into the moment and handle the pressure. And that's how we got this team. It's not saying, Suni or Jade or Jordan wouldn't have made it, but I think the fact that we have four Olympians, I don't think we would have all four of these Olympians on this team if everybody had been healthy. And so that's a really sad thing to say. It was a sad thing to witness, but it was also really cool to see everyone pull together and to see the depth and the resilience that we have on our USA team.
Yeah, I think what you just said is really a testament, especially to the depth of the team, because you just said all three of these people are amazing and all three of them succumbed to injury, so they couldn't obviously be on the team. So then, like, if those three were fully healthy, maybe they could have made the team, maybe two, maybe one would have been on the team, two alternates. You don't know, but the fact too that's like, all right, even with those three being on the team, not being on the team, and you're still rolling in with those five and those alternates, it's just like the talent pool for the United States and women's gymnastics knows no bounds at this current point in time because I mean, what you're able to pull out, what you're able to take to Paris is you could technically say it's not even the USA at their full strength, and
Mm-hmm.
they got four Olympians on there. So I think it shows the depth, like you said earlier, about the team, and then there's more people, like you said, who are watching, who are going to be coming down the pipeline, especially the next Olympics. So, with the Olympics about to happen
Mm-hmm.
in the end of this month, these gymnasts still have other obligations. I don't know when those obligations end, that they just fully go to Paris and do their thing, but some of these gymnasts still got college obligations, still got their other
Mm-hmm.
competition obligations. How do you balance from all aspects? Let's just say like a Simone running her gym and practicing, or for someone who's in college, balancing their NCAA team practice with now like their Olympic practice, or like a high schooler balancing getting ready to go to high school and do an Olympic practice. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, I think we see a lot of different strategies. And I think something interesting about this quad, meaning for, I guess it's a try since we had Olympics a year later last time because of COVID. This quad was really interesting because for the first time, we had the ability of the top gymnasts to benefit off of their name, image, and likeness while maintaining their collegiate eligibility. We absolutely would not have this team that we have with so many college gymnasts if NIL hadn't happened. So from the collegiate side of things, it was interesting to see how different elite gymnasts who were doing both elite and college were balancing it. So I think we talked a little bit about this during the college season about how, certain teams had members step away to really focus on their, like maybe go to a qualifying meet,
Yeah.
fulfill their obligations internationally. Um, so others just completely took the season off. So Jordan Chiles of UCLA took time away from college completely. So UCLA was down one of their best gymnasts
Mm-hmm.
while she was really focused on training her elite skills and getting ready. Meanwhile, Jade Carey and Leanne Wong, both who Jade is on the team and Leanne's an alternate, both of them continued to compete through their college season. Jade kind of eased off a little bit, really didn't do all around very much, was really careful with the numbers she put in. Leanne, as they say in Florida, has one speed. So Leanne really pushed through, was the star for Florida that Florida needed her to be. Didn't really appear from the competition standpoint to ease up on her college work, gymnastics wise. And then Suni actually completely left Auburn. So she withdrew from school, left the college team, and switched to completely focusing on her elite career. So those are kind of like three different strategies. Kayla DiCello, who we were, expecting to see make strides toward making this team, also took time away from Florida completely. So she just left Florida, went back to her elite coach and focused. I was wondering, something I was really interested to see going into this season was how those different strategies would pan out. So would it be smart for someone like Leanne Wong to do an entire college season and then an entire Olympic summer? And would her body, and would she be able to hold her peak and peak at the right time? Would Jordan Giles like give up a year of eligibility and give up a college experience year? Would that pay off? And I think based on the results we saw, there seem to be many different paths to success. And whatever's right for these gymnasts can work because we have, at least three different strategies for balancing NCAA and elite Olympic training that made this team. So I think that was really cool to see and really cool to show the younger generations too that whatever's right for you as a person and as an athlete can be made to work towards your Olympic goals.
Just because I don't have the list with me of everyone who tried to compete, because
Mhm.
Oh, no, there's going to be some people I was going to ask that we'll talk about down there. But on the American side, were there any like people from the national champions trying to be an Olympian, like from LSU? I know
Hmm.
there's one that's going to be from the Philippines that we'll talk about a little bit later, but like anyone from America on the LSU teams, like, I want a national championship. Let me go try and do a double
Mhm.
whammy, be a national champion and an Olympian.
Yeah, there really aren't any others. So like the challenge with NCAA is that it is really hard to compete both because NCAA gymnastics and elite gymnastics, they involve a lot of the same sports and a lot of the same skills, but they are different sports. They're also different levels of demand on your body in terms of training. So there are a lot of really tip top, amazing LSU gymnasts, NCAA Oklahoma gymnasts that maybe were elites, but a lot of times we're never on the path to being elites or becoming Olympians. Um, I think it's interesting to say. I mean, like I will, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure the NCAA stars who were also doing college and balanced the two, those are all the people who made the team. There really wasn't anybody else, like in terms of current gymnasts, I believe, who were in the mix. Although actually, I'm going to eat my words. Connor McLean from LSU actually was in the mix. This fits our theme with what we were talking about before. Connor decided to make a comeback to elite. She had won national championships 2 years ago, was national champion before going to college. She made her elite comeback at U.S. Classic a few months ago and ruptured her Achilles. So we could have had Connor McLean, another LSU gymnast in the mix. But for the most part, the college Olympians were they either got injured or they made the team. There weren't a lot of in-betweeners, which is kind of interesting. Um, but yeah.
Just asking for the super casual fan because someone may comment on here saying how come Livy Dunn's not on the team. So just wanted to make sure we
Yes, Livy
threw.
Dunn isn't on the team because that girl's ready to retire. Poor girl.
Yep,
Um,
she maximized her thing and she helped deliver the promise that they were going to get the title. So,
Indeed.
um, before we talk about competition, these five, six, seven, these gymnasts, obviously, all eyes are going to be on Simone just
Mhm.
because of her status and because last Olympics did not go in her favor. She had to pull out because she had the twisties, which spurred a whole lot of conversation about mental health and patriotism to your country and
Mhm.
this and that. It's spurred a whole lot of different conversations going a whole bunch of different ways. So the camera's going to be on her a lot. So she obviously has to overcome that because that's going to be the first thing they ask her, like, "Oh, do you have the twist?" Like, yada yada yada. But for these other gymnasts, what did they have to overcome to get to this point? Besides maybe Rivera passing like algebra class.
Right. Well, I mean, since you mentioned Hezly, I do want to start with her because I think the other gymnasts on the team, the USA already knows them. They've been in the spotlight.
Hmm.
I do want to give a little well, first of all, algebra is hard, math is
Oh
hard.
yeah.
Good for her. I hope she passed algebra. Otherwise,
I just had to think of a high school
I
course at
know.
16, so I was like, that's probably algebra one if you're smart, algebra two. So
Yeah, so if Hesley, if you're listening and you hear us talking about algebra and it's giving you PTSD, we're sorry. I hope you passed. I'm sure you're very talented at whatever you do. So anyway, Hesley is part of a generation of she was a junior elite at a time when something that someone I've heard someone in the higher ups at USA Gymnastics say at one point was that our juniors aren't as strong as like we really don't have as strong a group of juniors ready to come up as we're accustomed to having. And a big impact on that was actually COVID. So Hezly, COVID was like 4 years ago, so um, Hezly, when she was 12, like formative years of her training and, the pathway to building up the skills to be an international elite, she probably wasn't able to compete. She wasn't able to train the way that she would. So something that's kind of happened across the world is like gymnasts in that age group did have this setback in their training, and they are kind of a year, maybe 2 years behind what you would expect them to be normally. So the fact that Hezly is able to, at 16, with, having trained through a pandemic and lost time in training to be at this level, I think is really commendable and really cool. As far as Suni, oh, poor Suni. So there was actually a Sports Illustrated article that came out recently about Suni, talking a little bit about her struggles after the Olympics and more recently with her health. So I know on the last pod, we talked a little bit about her kidney diseases. So she had two different kidney diseases. A year ago, she said she wasn't even sure it would be possible for her to do gymnastics again. So she worked really hard with doctors, and she is now in remission, but she lost a ton of training time, a lot of confidence, and it was just a very traumatic experience to have her body, an international best gymnast in the world, having her body shut down on her in the way that it did. And she also talked a little bit about just the stress that comes and the pressure that comes with being an Olympic gold medalist when that's not really what you were expecting. She talked a little bit about how college wasn't as enjoyable as she thought it would be, and she just really struggled. So I'd recommend all of our listeners, if they want to hear more about Suni's story, checking that out. It was a very good article, and just kind of drives home how just incredible it was that Suni is back at full strength, came in second place at this Olympic trials, and is up back at the level where she was before all this happened. Jordan Chiles, oh man, this girl. I thought going into trials, before I saw her compete, I thought she was probably the least likely of the Olympians to make the team. Because she did kind of have a slow season. She had a slow climb to the peak that she arrived at. She had a shoulder injury that kept her out of Winter Cup and a couple of other meets. But she showed up. When I saw her compete on bars this weekend, I thought back to her perfect 10 bars routine at NCAA Nationals a couple years ago. She was on to the extent that I know that Jordan can be on. And so it was really cool to see her reach that peak. She's also talked about how she's had some struggles. She lost a couple close family members in the past year. Yeah, so she definitely has had some things to claw her way back from. And then Jade, people forget that Jade was the favorite. She did win Olympic gold on floor exercise in Tokyo. People forget she was favored to win gold in vault. Like, she was even favored to beat Simone in vault. In event finals, she was doing her first vault. She tripped on the runway, ended up having to do just a really simple back tuck. And she said to her dad in that moment, "Hey, we're going to have to come back and we're going to have to go to Paris." So it's great to see that she made it all the way back to this level, and we'll have that opportunity for redemption in Tokyo, or not Tokyo, Paris.
Paris.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's a team that I think America's really going to be able to get behind. It's a team that largely we already know, we're already invested in, and ready to cheer for. But I think it's cool to see how they've all kind of grown and matured since 4 years ago. And then, of course, we all get to meet Hezly and see her gymnastics for the first time.
All right. So with this team, very battle tested, tough. The competition.
Mm-hmm.
Who out there obviously there are people who were born in other countries, have other internet nationalities that may be competing, who may compete for a college year, but they're competing for their home country
Mhm.
in the Olympics. So what I know people talk about China, like what's the competition looking like out there for the USA team?
Mm. So the top US rival in the past several years has been Russia.
Hmm.
Russia will not be in the picture in Tokyo due to the war in Tokyo. I keep saying Tokyo.
Paris.
Russia will not be in Paris. I'm wearing my Eiffel Tower gymnastics shirt. I should remember it's Paris. Um, so Russia will not be competing in Paris. You might think it's because of their doping violations, but actually it's because of the war in Ukraine. So they will not be there. China always puts up a good fight. So China's going to be in the mix. But honestly, the past 2 years at um, Worlds, there's been kind of a fun cycling through of different teams making their way into the mix. So a couple years ago, Team Canada won its very first team medal. I think they won a bronze a couple years ago. Last year was really fun. Team Brazil. So the person other than Chiles Jones, who I think is capable of beating Simone Biles, is Rebecca Andrade from Brazil. And so she has a whole host of teammates who are going to be coming back. They won silver as a team at Worlds last year. France also did very, very well last year. Great Britain is usually in the mix, but they, much like the US, have had kind of an Armageddon of injuries, and their team is largely the best of who is left. So those are the teams. Italy also is usually in the mix there. There are also a lot of gymnasts that I think are going to be really fun to watch. So whether they make it into finals or not, there are a number of familiar faces. This is primarily an NCAA gymnastics podcast. I definitely want to give a shout out to other
Mhm.
NCAA Olympians to watch in Paris. So biggest name is probably Miss Aaliyah Finnegan from LSU, national champion. She will be representing her mom's home country of the Philippines, along with Emma Malabuyo of UCLA and Levi Jung Rivar, who's an incoming gymnast at Stanford. Luisa Blanco is a big, big name. I believe we talked about her by name. She's a recent Alabama grad, and she has dual citizenship with Colombia. And so she recently decided to make the um, switch to elite gymnastics and will be representing Colombia. And then kind of a controversial decision by the FIG, but is exciting for NCAA gymnastics fans is Lindsey Brown is a Denver grad, was one of the best gymnasts in the country when she was active. She has dual citizenship with Haiti and is the first international elite gymnast ever to represent Haiti. And so she actually qualified to the Olympics by being named. So the FIG has kind of an apartheid or a spot that they give that they grant to somebody from an underrepresented nation to go and attend the Olympics and compete. And so Lindsay got that spot for Haiti. There's a little bit of controversy about like whether it's really fair for somebody who is from the US and has benefited from all of the US resources to have that spot when it was kind of intended and designed for people who, are training and coming up through countries' programs that don't have all those things. So that's kind of the controversy there, but it is really cool to see Lindsay, kind of creating a legacy. And I know she hopes to create and like start programs in Haiti for the gymnastics program to kind of grow. So I'm happy for her. And it's very exciting for Haiti to have a representation. So those are kind of like the big names. It's will be interesting to see how they do competing against the US because These are all NCAA gymnasts. We don't know much about, and I don't know much about what their difficulty score is like. So if they were going up against all these U.S. gymnasts in college competition, I think it would be very comparable. But because in the elite competition, there's the D score, I don't know enough about what kind of difficulty level routines they're going to be able to bring and put together to know if they're going to be able to kind of hold their own against the U.S. But regardless of what happens, it's going to be really exciting to see more NCAA, excuse me, gymnasts
Yeah.
at the Olympics and vice versa.
So again, you were actually there.
Yes.
Um, you got to experience all the energy, the emotions, highs, lows, all of that live. Since you were there, I can only imagine where have you already started planning for 2028?
Kind of. Yeah. My friend Abby, who took me, we were walking away from the arena. She turned to me and she's like, let's go to the Olympics in 2028. Like I would do this again. Let's try to get tickets. I was like, whoa, Abby, let's slow down.
Well, I guess in 4 years, 4 years to plan. I mean, if you're really gonna do it and you have a set financial plan for 4 years, you could do it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I would definitely be tempted. The biggest question I'm gonna have to ask myself is, do I want to deal with LA traffic during the Olympics?
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the big question, but we'll see. But it 10 out of 10 is something I would do again if I have the financial means to do it. I would recommend that anybody who is passionate about gymnastics do it. What was amazing about it to me is how knowledgeable the entire crowd was and how everybody who paid at least $300 to be there knew these gymnast stories. They knew their routines. They knew what needed to happen in order for each of them to make the team. So
Oh, yeah.
when Suni got up on bars night two and did the routine, the bars routine with the highest difficulty that we have seen in a really long time, and execute it so perfectly. 16,000 people, floor to ceiling of this arena, gave her a standing ovation.
Well, I think when you get to that point, though, like what you just said, 300 for the nosebleed, you are not dealing the casual fan, unless they're just rich and can do it on a whim, they're not going to pay 300 for any
Mm-hmm.
seat of something they don't know anything about. So for the people who are going those 16,000, you and your friend included, are people who follow this sport day in, day out. You're on all the social medias reading updates about the sports. Like the diehards are the ones who are at that thing. And when all the diehards are there, most of the diehards are knowledgeable about the sports, which gives it an even a fantastic more reaction on the TV because it's like it could be a simple thing where someone's hand like turns to the left and the crowd, because you guys know like, oh my gosh, that's a minus something deduction, and you all gas, and us watching the TV is like, what happened? We didn't notice it. And then we see it on like the replay and we're like, so that's why the crowd just like got quiet all of a sudden and whatnot. So I mean, you guys all there are the best representation of what a gymnastics fan is all about.
Mm-hmm. And it's rare that we get that many of us
No,
in one place at one time. So that was
I
very
mean,
cool.
I mean, a lot. There's anticipation, obviously, with the heavy hitters, and I especially think the way because I personally enjoyed the college season that they just had, like with a lot of like walk off wins and a new champion, like just overall the gymnastics as a whole, the whole sport, I feel like is in a very positive direction. And then you're about to crescendo at the Olympics, and this is going to be the only time in history you have two all around champs on the same team. I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming, because I don't want to be an ageist, but I'm assuming this is the last time a lot of these people, especially the all around champions, will be on this team. So
Mm-hmm.
this will be your last chance to see them compete like that. So everything's just mixing well right now for gymnastics.
It really is.
Like
It really,
everything is
really is.
mixing. Now, there are two things that weren't on our notes that I wanted to say real quickly. So,
Okay.
obviously, with the people who got hurt, a lot of them went to Florida because you
Mhm.
do have social media. On your Twitter account, you said a Florida revenge tour potentially coming for the season.
I mean, I hope so. I
I
really.
do I do think there is a team in Norman, Oklahoma that is already they are plotting their own revenge because they feel highly embarrassed about how their season. But that's neither here nor there.
Yes,
That's
that
a
is
December
a. We will
conversation.
talk about that conversation a lot in a few months.
And then the Suni Lee thing that you talked about, I did see that article. I read that
Mhm.
article. I heard her talk and all of that. And I think with anyone in that position that she was in, where she's like, she didn't expect to win because obviously, like, you didn't expect Simone to back out or whatnot. I do
Mhm.
think you have to get to a point where it's like, that happened. You, instead of focusing on that, you didn't expect to win, yada, yada, but you stepped up. You did what you needed to do. You did win. So don't focus on didn't expect to win. Like that, you did win and you represented the country and yourself and your family. So it's just like one of those things where if you apply for a job, someone gets that job, but then the last second they don't get the job because of a background check or something like that, then you get offered the job. You're not thinking, oh, if this person passed their background, you're like, all right, I got the job, and now I'm going to do the best of my abilities to show why I did it. And she has done ever since she's won that medal. Anytime she's performed, I mean, she took that. I don't want to call them ragtag, but she took that group of Auburn all the way to the Final Four. Her 1 year
Mhm.
there, so I think she needs to realize, and if she ever just finds this soundbite because one of her rabid fandom people just Google Suni Lee and anything and send it to her. It's just you earned that all around medal. So don't let
Mhm.
anyone on the internet tell you differently. And if you really, I
Mhm.
mean, and then just again, perform again and then go from there.
Yeah, and I think something really cool that's been neat to see is having these two Olympic all-around champions in the mix to be able to support each other
Hmm.
is huge because nobody can really understand what that's like.
Oh yeah.
But there was an incident or there was something that happened. There's a conference from U.S. Nationals that happened. Like Suni fell off a vault, and Simone left her rotation, left her warm up group to go check on Suni and make sure she was okay, make sure she didn't get lost in the air. I talked her through it, and then physically stood next to the bars to support her while she was doing her bar routine. And just like the pressure and like the pressure of being a reigning all around champion is something that
Hmm.
Simone understands very, very well. And I think it's just extra special that um, Suni has that support in the form of her teammates who did do college and also her teammate Simone, who also is an all around Olympic champion. So I hope Suni, oh, I hope she knows how amazing she is. Like you said, I hope she knows that she is as good as that gold medal says that she is. And I hope that the people and the support around her is going to be able to um, kind of carry her through and support her through this next Olympic experience.
And I think what you just said is a good point. No one, I mean, no one knows what it's really like to be at the top except for the people who have reached the top before. I mean, they're the only two at this current point on the team who've gotten that gold medal and all around. They know what it takes. Like they know the pain, the struggle, all of that. So being able to lean on each other is going to be a great thing, especially Simone is expected to do it, or Suni is supposed to be right behind her, and when this is over. So those two I think are going to do a lot in Paris. So the Olympics start at the end of July. It looks like Saturday the 27th is when the men's qualifications for artistic gymnastics start. On
Mhm.
women's qualifications start on the 28th. So, and then if you want to go on the Paris 2024 site, you can go through the Paris time and my time. So on the Paris time, it says 9:30, but then if it's our time, it says 3:30, but they don't have the AM or PM on there. So
Well, that's not helpful.
that is not helpful. That's the biggest thing. So once the AM and PM thing, because man, if I don't think they're that far ahead, that will be a great thing to have because for the super, super, super young people who didn't know some of this stuff a long time ago, you would get it on tape delay so that
Mhm.
when you woke up and watched it, you felt like it was live. And I think that ended around when we became like,
Yeah, once social media spoilers
yeah,
became a
most social
problem.
media spoiled everything. Like you didn't, unless you're one of those people where if you really lock in, like I can do it for stuff I really care about. I will not get on social media. I will turn on now because it's with Peacock, like the Peacock app or whatnot, and I'll watch it there so I don't get spoiled. So, and I think these are the one there you don't want to get spoiled. So, 28th, that's when it all starts, and then we'll be back after it's done to talk about the medals and the shining stars, and yeah.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
Oh yeah, it'll be very exciting. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Our first, forgot to say this in the opening, our first women's gymnastics Olympic episode ever, the very
Mhm.
first one ever, because we've never had an episode dedicated towards the Olympic Games because we didn't start during the Paris one. I mean, during the Tokyo one. So now we're going to be following the gymnastics. So we'll be following it. We'll have a review on the finals and we'll go from there. With that being said, make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe wherever you listen to L7C Podcast. Signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C Podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.